Morning. I've got my hat on, you'll notice. Well, I read this last night, and it's not too long. It's it's a contrary intelligent article. It's from a magazine called New Dawn. Some might call it a conspiracy magazine, but so Caitlin Johnston, good lady. I'm not sure whether you want to see me or the article, but the mainstream world. Now this is inaugurally read after the recent US election. So it's more of a middle finger to politics itself, which is all just empire, really. So let's just read the article, shall we? It's rather general. People that still believe that the news media tell them the truth and that their nation and the world work pretty much the way they were taught at school are just as brainwashed and deluded as any QAnon cultist. The only difference is that their delusions are much more widely shared and that the mechanisms used to brainwash them are more high-budget and sophisticated. The mainstream worldview is really just a mass-produced artificial psychosis. The mainstream worldview is really just a mass-produced artificial psychosis. The mainstream worldview is really just a mass-produced artificial psychosis. It's actually difficult to wrap your mind around the scale and the perverseness of the mountain of lies upon which this dystopian civilization is built. You think you're starting to get a read on things, then you gain more knowledge and insight and realise it goes much further than you thought. You start pulling on one thread, maybe some obvious lie about Iraq or Palestine or whatever, and the whole thing just keeps unravelling and unravelling and unravelling. Before you know it, you're staring at a society that is not just riddled with untruth, but actually woven entirely from the fabric of untruth. Everything, how your nation really works, how the world really works, how capitalism really works, what politics really are, what the media are really used for, what laws are really used for, what wars and militarism are really used for, what ideology is really used for, what religion is really used for, what culture is really used for, what rules and etiquette are really used for. Art world. It's all made up narrative, and all the way down. And all of those narratives are made up by the powerful, in service of the powerful. If you can tell someone's still playing in the shallow end of the pool with political insight based on how much time they spend freaking out about a dark dystopian future, because it shows the extent to which they fail to perceive how profoundly unfree we are right here and now. Right-wingers, ideologically prohibited from considering the possibility that what they're experiencing under capitalism isn't real freedom, spend their time freaking out about a neo-Marxist future where everyone's trapped in a 15-minute cities forced to take poisonous vaccines and eat bugs. Western liberals, ideologically prohibited from considering the possibility they live under the world's most tyrannical power structure and that everything they were taught is a lie, spend their time freaking out about a future under horrible Trumpian dictatorship. If you've really got your eyes open, you understand that as a whole we could not actually be more effectively enslaved to the will of the powerful than we are right now, even if we were all wearing chains around our necks and had our mind-controlled computer chips in our brains. As a collective, we've always thinking, speaking, labouring, spending, living exactly and voting exactly as the wealthiest and most powerful people in our society want us to. Our entire lives completely dedicated to the service of their continued power and profit, while our information systems keep pummeling us into with the message that we are free. We are indoctrinated in believing that we are a free country, unlike those poor suckers in Iran or North Korea. And we're indoctrinated into believing everything else our tyrannical rulers want us to believe as well. We sing of our freedom while marching in unison to the beat of our imperial drum. Our minds are so fully subjugated that we don't even realize that we are marching. We are free, we cry. We free to sell our labour at extortionate rates to the capitalist class, free to rent to professional landholders or mortgage payments to banks for the privilege of having shelter on the planet where we were born on, free to choose between 10,000 different kinds of toothpaste and 2 warmongering capitalist political parties, free to vote in fake elections for free fake candidates who will never change anything, free to think however we have been trained to think and say anything we've been trained to say, free to live exactly how we've been programmed to live by our owners. And sure, there are a few of us who manage to get our minds unplugged from the propaganda matrix, but our numbers are kept so few as to be inconsequential. Everyone else is told we are paranoid conspiracy theorists and victims of Russian propaganda and disinformation in order to inoculate the mainstream herd against infection from wrongthink, while the volume on the imperial indoctrination machine is simply cranked up a notch. The good news is that there's no way this is sustainable. There's only so much depravity you can sweep under the carpet before the broom of deception, before people start noticing the lumps on the floor. There's only so far you can stretch and twist the human mind before it snaps. The empire is a house of cards resting on a closed pair of eyelids, and at some point those eyelids are going to flutter open. At some point everyone's going to start noticing the loose threads in the fabric of all this and keep pulling and pulling and pulling until they see through the entire scam. Caitlin Johnson is a reader-supported independent journalist from Melbourne, Australia. All works co-authored with her husband, Tom Foley. Support their work at their website, caitlinjohnson.one/about. Well, I didn't mind that. And I was just reading to this other fella, a Belgian, talking about mass formation psychosis. Basically saying that, we're all chronically lonely and we'll join a psychotic mob think, and that those, mob thinks are all, manipulated, digitally corralled, promoted content, AI, spin lab created memes, and that we'll get on board with the social media. So choose your poison, loneliness or psychotic groupthink. Propaganda's real. I suppose if I was going to say something slightly cheery about it all, when culture is basically a sort of saturated groupthink madness, some kind of internal speculative thing. I mean, this is where the initiation of trauma, actually does promote the impulse towards healing and truth finding, truth seeking, and perhaps sort of looking a little bit beyond our modern myopia into the way the ancients dealt with such things, because it has all happened before. The more I'm sort of reading about Rome and whatnot, I think I was returning to the mystic as an artist, I suppose, in that regard. But I quite enjoyed that. Apt. Yeah, so whoever won the American election, I think BlackRock and Vanguard probably won. Whatever happens. Kia ora.